Unlimited options don't feel dangerous. They feel empowering, liberating, reassuring. First, before we go deeper, hit subscribe and like the video. This is DepthRealm, where we expose the patterns people don't want to face. When options never end, attraction doesn't expand. It fractures. And the fracture happens quietly, inside the nervous system, long before anyone notices it in behavior. The human brain was never designed for infinite choice. It was designed for selection under constraint. Constraint creates value. Scarcity sharpens focus. Limitation forces commitment. When those constraints disappear, attraction changes its shape. Not morally, neurologically. Female attraction, in particular, is highly sensitive to environmental context. Not because women are indecisive, but because their nervous systems evolved to assess relational landscapes, not single objects. When the landscape becomes endless, orientation collapses. Orientation is the sense of this matters more than that. Without orientation, desire weakens. That's the first shift no one talks about. When options never end, nothing feels urgent. And without urgency, attraction loses gravity. Early on, abundance feels intoxicating. Attention flows easily. Interest arrives constantly. Validation becomes ambient noise. The nervous system interprets this as safety. I am desired. I am chosen. I am secure. But security without focus doesn't deepen attraction. It disperses it, because attraction is not built on availability. It's built on selection, and selection requires exclusion. When nothing has to be excluded, nothing is chosen fully. This is where attraction starts to thin out. Not dramatically, subtly. She still dates, still connects, still feels sparks. But the sparks don't anchor, because anchoring requires finality, and infinite options eliminate finality. Here's the psychological mechanism underneath. Every option carries a hidden cost, opportunity loss. Choosing one path means abandoning others. In a limited environment, the brain accepts this cost. In an unlimited environment, the brain resists it. So attraction becomes provisional. Let's see. Let's not rush. Let's keep options open. This sounds rational. It feels responsible. But the nervous system interprets it differently. It stays in scanning mode. Scanning mode prevents bonding. Bonding requires closure. And closure feels risky when options are endless. So attraction never fully consolidates. It remains fluid, temporary, reversible. This is why attraction in high-option environments feels intense but shallow. Fast highs, fast fades, nothing sticks. Now let's go deeper. When options never end, the brain shifts from attachment mode to evaluation mode. Evaluation mode is analytical, comparative, restless. Who's better? Who's more exciting? Who's more aligned? Comparison erodes presence. Presence is required for desire. You cannot feel deeply attracted while mentally browsing alternatives. Attraction requires immersion. Endless options prevent immersion. So desire becomes fragmented. Part of her is here, part of her is elsewhere. And the nervous system never fully settles. This creates a constant low-grade dissatisfaction. Not unhappiness, restlessness. Restlessness feels like excitement at first. Later, it feels like emptiness. Here's where the confusion starts. Women often think attraction is fading because the partner is lacking. But often, attraction is fading because the environment never allowed it to deepen. It's not the man. It's the context. When options never end, the nervous system never learns to stay. Staying feels like loss. And loss feels unnecessary when abundance is promised. So attraction avoids commitment instinctively. Even when the connection is good. Even when the man is compatible. Even when the relationship is healthy. Because healthy requires narrowing focus. And narrowing focus feels like risk. This is why many women report feeling unable to settle. Not unwilling. Unable. Their nervous system has adapted to motion. Stillness feels wrong. Now let's talk about dopamine. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It's the seeking chemical. It activates when there's anticipation of reward. Endless options keep anticipation permanently high. Swipe culture, messages, matches, interest without investment. The brain stays in chase mode. Chase mode feels alive. But chase mode cannot coexist with satisfaction. Because satisfaction ends the chase. So attraction becomes addicted to pursuit, not presence. This is why novelty feels more attractive than depth. Depth ends uncertainty. Novelty renews it. The nervous system prefers uncertainty when conditioned to it. This is why attraction shifts away from consistent partners toward intermittent ones. Not because inconsistency is better, but because inconsistency maintains dopamine. This is the hidden cost of endless options. They train attraction to respond to availability, not reliability. And availability is cheap. Reliability is rare. But rarity is invisible when abundance dominates perception. Here's another layer. When options never end, self-worth becomes externalized. Not fully but subtly. Attention becomes proof. Interest becomes confirmation. The more options available, the more validation arrives. And validation feels regulating. So attraction becomes intertwined with ego reinforcement. She's not just choosing a partner. She's choosing how she feels about herself. This complicates desire. Because now attraction must perform two jobs: connection and reassurance. Most connections fail at the second job. So attraction jumps elsewhere. This creates a loop. New attention restores self-worth temporarily. Old connection feels flat. So the cycle continues. Attraction never matures. It resets. This is why relationships feel replaceable in high-option environments. Not because people are heartless, but because the nervous system never bonded deeply. Bonding requires time without alternatives. Now let's address the long-term effect. When options never end, attraction becomes fragile. Small flaws feel bigger. Normal boredom feels intolerable. Minor conflict feels disqualifying. Because the brain assumes replacement is easy. Why repair when you can replace? This mindset doesn't make people cruel. It makes them transient. And transient attraction cannot build trust. Without trust, desire remains surface level. This is why many women say they feel less attracted over time despite having more choices. Because attraction thrives on investment. And investment requires narrowing. Endless options discourage investment. Now here's the paradox. The more options there are, the harder it becomes to feel chosen. Because if everyone is available, selection feels less meaningful. So even when someone chooses her, it doesn't land. It doesn't register deeply. Because choice feels reversible. This weakens attachment. Attachment needs finality. I choose you must imply not others. When that implication disappears, attraction loses weight. This is why exclusivity feels threatening in high-option environments. It demands sacrifice. Sacrifice contradicts abundance. So attraction resists. Now let's talk about time. Early in life, endless options feel manageable. Energy is high. Curiosity is strong. Stimulation feels sustainable. Over time, the nervous system fatigues. Endless evaluation becomes exhausting. But by then, the conditioning is deep. Stillness feels boring. Consistency feels dull. Peace feels empty. Attraction struggles to attach to anything stable. This is when dissatisfaction peaks. Not because desire is gone, but because desire was never allowed to anchor. This is when regret appears, not necessarily for a specific person, but for a feeling that never arrived. The feeling of certainty, of grounding, of depth. Endless options promised freedom, but they quietly removed focus. And without focus, attraction cannot mature. Now here's the most uncomfortable truth. Female attraction does not thrive in infinite choice. It thrives in intentional narrowing. When a woman chooses deliberately, not reactively, her nervous system calms. Calm allows bonding. Bonding allows desire to deepen. But this requires stepping out of the endless stream. And stepping out feels risky, because it means letting go of potential. But potential is not fulfillment. Potential is imagination. Attraction needs reality. This is why women who consciously limit options often report stronger attraction. Not because they settled, but because they allowed their nervous system to orient. Orientation creates depth. Depth creates desire. Now let's talk about men's role in this. Men also adapt to endless options. They offer less commitment, less clarity, less risk. Because risk feels unnecessary when replacements are easy. This further destabilizes attraction. Women feel less secure. Security drops. Anxiety rises. Anxiety feels like chemistry, so attraction becomes chaotic. Endless options create instability on both sides. This isn't gender blame. It's system effect. The environment shapes behavior. Now here's the final layer. When options never end, attraction becomes self-focused. What do I feel? What do I want? What excites me now? Long-term attraction requires other focus. What are we building? How do we grow? What do we protect? Endless options delay that shift. So attraction stays adolescent. Exciting but brittle. Here's the final truth. Endless options don't expand female attraction. They dilute it. They keep the nervous system searching instead of choosing. They turn desire into evaluation. And evaluation kills immersion. Attraction needs immersion. Immersion needs limits. Without limits, desire floats, never landing long enough to grow roots. Once a woman understands this, something changes. She stops equating abundance with freedom. She stops confusing choice with fulfillment. She chooses deliberately. And when choice becomes intentional, attraction becomes stronger, not weaker. Because desire doesn't grow from having everything. It grows from choosing one thing fully. That's the part no one warns you about. See the pattern. Protect your energy. This is DepthRealm.